Alright, so let's do this here. Alright, so as I was saying earlier, the first thing you have to do is set the variables real quick. So that's all I'm doing here. It's super easy. Just type it in like this. Now, the only thing to remember about this is when it's talking about the data types, it was talking about, a float point in your example. Basically what that is the type of data that this variable is. So if we look at width here, it's just 17, right? So it's a very basic number, so it's just called an integer. Now this is a little bit more complex. It's got a decimal with, it can have any toward number. So even with a 0, it is actually called a floating point because it has a point in it. Weird. The last part here, this is just a delimiter. This part is irrelevant. Once again, this is just variable names. What's important here, though, is that you're seeing this is in quotation marks. So what happens is that this is actually a string. This can be anything. I could actually type in 5 times 6 here, and that's not going to be an integer or a floating point. It's actually just going to be like I'm typing 5 times 6. It will print 5 times 6. It's not going to treat it as a number. It's just going to treat it as text. So these are your 3 data types. So integers, basic numbers, floating things, and text, or in programming it's called a string. So this is a dot in string. So now the first thing I wanted you to do, so I set up these 3 variables and wanted you to give 3 examples. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to type in the command print, and then just type in the variable name here. So width. Cool. So I can print this here, so I'm going to push F5 to run it, save it, whatever. Cool. So you see that here it's 17. That was my variable I set. So the example needed that divided by 2. So we're going to print that. So we get 8. Now, why are we getting 8? We should be getting, 7.5. Well, it's because it's an integer. Remember, so integers are only whole numbers. So, for example here, if I did it like this, reran this, now we get 8.5. Make sense? So we're going to leave it for the example though. So we're going to leave our integer alone. So let's also print the second one here. So this is, oh, actually funny, never mind, I didn't realize that that was the second example. Okay, so width divided by 2.0. Alright. We're going to do print here. Height divided by 3. Alright, so let's just do these through real quick. Okay, so 8, integer. This, because you're taking the integer and we were applying a floating point to it, it actually changed the answer to a floating point. So we actually got the correct answer. Height divided by 3. So height is 12.0. So once again, height is a floating point. So you can see here we get the full 4.0 floating point number. And that's how we know, because it actually gave us the full information. So last one here is going to print 1. Okay, I think that executed right. Yeah, that executed right. So once again, this is the 11 answer here is just an integer. So let's see if this works. Okay, yeah, so cool. Now we have it as a floating point. Okay, last one. Print. Okay. So, again, remember, this is a string here, right? Delimiter is actually string or slash text. So, let's see what the answer is here. Dot, dot, dot. So we took the text of dot and multiplied that by, so now we have 5 dots. So, for example here, if we made this, whatever, you would have u 5 times. So, even if we actually did have a number like 9, See, does 9999 because it's treating it as text and not as something it can do mathematical formulas with, like an integer or a floating point. Anyways, I hope that helps, man. Alright, bye.